Welcome to the deep dive. We've got something pretty interesting today.
Yeah. What's up?
Well, a listener sent over some sources about a recent attempted impeachment in the Philippines against President Marcos Jr.
Ah, right. That news from, May 9th? I saw some headlines.
Exactly. So we thought we'd, dive in, unpack what actually happened, why it matters.
Sounds good. Let's get into it. What's the basic story?
Okay, so it started on May 8th, 2025. You have Ronald and Marie Cardima. They're connected to former President Duterte.
Okay, Duterte allies. Got it.
They went to file an impeachment complaint against Marcos.
And the grounds. What was the accusation?
Culpable violation of the Constitution and betrayal of public trust, basically. They claimed Marcos helped the International Criminal Court, the ICC, with its investigation into Duterte's drug war, like paving the way for Duterte's potential arrest.
Okay. That's a serious charge. And their legal argument for that being an impeachable offense.
Well, they argued it meant Marcos had ceded sovereign control to the ICC.
Ah, the sovereignty argument. Even though the Philippines officially withdrew from the ICC back in 2019.
Right. That's the core of their claim. And they weren't alone. Duterte Youth Representative Drixie Cardema endorsed it.
So they had the complaint. They had an endorser.
Yeah.
What went wrong? Why attempted?
This is where it gets procedural. They tried to submit it, but the House Secretary General's office, well, it wouldn't accept it.
Wouldn't accept it. Why not?
The official reason given was that the Secretary General himself, Reginald Velasco, wasn't there. He was at a strategic planning seminar.
Okay.
And they said the whole office was effectively closed until May 13th because of the seminar.
So, office closed, can't file. Seems straightforward, maybe.
Well, not to the Cardemas. They argued the House rules just say file with the Office of the Secretary General.
The office, not necessarily the person Velasco.
Exactly. They felt it didn't matter if he was there or not. The office should have taken the document. They saw it as, obstruction.
Okay, I see the conflict now. Procedural interpretation. What did the other side say? Marcos allies.
They pretty much dismissed it, called it a political stunt, a distraction just before the May 12th elections.
Right. The timing is definitely conspicuous, just days before polls open.
So this really hinges on how you read those House rules. Rule 2, Section 3, right? It does say Office of the Secretary General.
Yeah, it doesn't explicitly say Velasco himself must personally stamp it received.
And some legal funds point out that government offices usually have what's called a ministerial duty.
Meaning they just have to accept documents filed during work hours, basically. Regardless of who's physically present at the top.
Pretty much, that interpretation would back up the Cardemas' claim that they were blocked.
The office was actually closed for this seminar. It wasn't just Velasco stepping out for coffee.
True. That complicates the idea of deliberate obstruction on that specific day. It gives the office a reason, whether you buy it or not.
It adds ambiguity. And then there's the timing again. Filing 4 days before an election, Congress about to adjourn.
Yeah, it raises questions about everyone's motives, doesn't it? The filers, the office refusing it, politics all around.
And beyond the procedure, what about the complaint itself, the legal substance, this ceded sovereignty idea?
That's another layer. The ICC's position is that it does have jurisdiction, but only for crimes alleged during the time the Philippines was a member.
Which was what, 2011 to 2019? Before the withdrawal.
Right. And interestingly, the Philippine Supreme Court itself ruled back in 2021 that the government should cooperate with ICC probes covering that specific period.
Oh, okay. So a domestic Supreme Court ruling mandates cooperation for that time frame.
Yeah. So that makes the whole surrendered sovereignty argument legally quite shaky, it seems. It kind of contradicts existing precedent.
So procedural questions aside, the legal basis for the impeachment itself looks debatable.
Definitely. So if you're listening, what you're seeing here is how partisan politics really gets tangled up in these formal processes like impeachment.
Especially when the ruling party, Marcos's allies here, controls the levers in Congress. They ultimately decide if a complaint even moves forward.
It really puts the spotlight on procedural clarity. Should rules be so open to interpretation that they can potentially be used, well, tactically?
It's that classic tension, isn't it, between following the letter of the law or the rule and the actual spirit of accountability.
Exactly. If a rule is ambiguous, does sticking strictly to one interpretation serve democracy, or could it actually block it?
It makes you think. If the goal is truly accountability, shouldn't the process be, as straightforward and accessible as possible?
Instead of relying on these kinds of debatable points about whether an office is open if the boss isn't there.
Right. It's a reminder, really. Democratic mechanisms, checks and balances, They're only as good as the good faith of the people running them.
Leaves you wondering, doesn't it? How do you ensure good faith when the stakes are so high? Something to mull over.